Did you hear the mics? Or whatever.
You got him?
Yeah, they should be on.
Okay.
So
Right.
everyone else will notice if we don't.
Okay. Episode 28. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Complete Game, episode 28. What's going on, G?
Not much. What's going on?
Nothing. I thought we'd take a brief pause on just different stuff and catch up. We are going to be trying to hold ourselves accountable to picks and predictions and stuff. And earlier this year, we kind of dove into our thoughts about division, pennant, World Series award winners, and I thought we might revisit them now, getting near the All-Star break, and then also, this was the time of year for a lot of my career. It was a busy time because the trade deadline rumors started. When you're on bad teams, you start hearing things, and different guys are affected in different ways and all the things that go with that. So we're going to talk about buyers and sellers. And I don't really, I think I'm just going to let you tell me what your thoughts are as far as buying and selling, G, and we'll talk about that and maybe mine next time.
Yeah, I had a couple questions that I'll like dive off of from. So I came with a buyer and a seller proposal.
Okay.
Two teams, one that I think should buy,
All right.
one that I think should sell.
So clear, buyers are guys that are looking to add at the deadline to make a postseason run to win a World Series.
Typically, teams in a borderline playoff position at this point in the season, not someone who is a clear cut like.
Well, it depends. Buyers can be the Yankees are always buyers, right? The Dodgers are always buyers. The challenge is for a team
Baseball's
like
a little different, I guess.
right, but for a team like the Red Sox, right? They are. I think. I mean, Crochet is a gives you a kind of a little different outlook, right? You got to play a one game play in. You got the guy. Maybe you make a run. But like. Um, a team like the Guardians or what do the Braves do? They're 14 out, right?
Yeah.
Of the division. But so yeah, and then you've got the crazy NL West, which still has four teams at 500 or above. And then the NL Central, same thing, four teams, 400 or 500 or above. And then you've got kind of a surprising NL East. But anyway, let's start off with if you're at the deadline now, what team are you in your mind are you going to be? I'm absolutely selling, 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 no chance. I mean, instead of the obvious, the Rockies and all these other teams, but what team are you being a seller and what are you selling?
I can lead off with my seller. So for my seller, I had a couple of honorable mentions. To start off, I had the Rockies and the Marlins as obvious sellers.
Right.
But one that was more of like a debatable topic, and I thought was a little bit more interesting for the show, maybe, was the Orioles, who are in a little bit of an interesting predicament. And they graduated a ton of their prospect pool, which was top three the last two seasons,
Mhm.
both going into and during the year. And they're now ranked 15th because, like I said, they
Right.
graduated a lot of that to the major leagues
Yeah.
uh, to have like middling success in the postseason if they're even in it. If they're not willing to go out and spend money
They're
right now, which I
so
was
you
going to
should
say,
say,
it
right?
doesn't
Your,
seem.
your first two recommendations, the Rockies and the Marlins. The problem is in those two organizations, there's a couple fringe guys, but Sandy Alcantara is the only sell.
Spoiler alert for part of my buyer section for
Right.
later.
But those two teams are sellers with really nothing to sell. Right? They're not Bird with Colorado is somebody who people are looking at. But whereas the Orioles,
That's why I thought they'd be a better discussion.
right, the Orioles were expected to have literally the opposite record of what they have. They're not going to make the playoffs. They're 14 and a half. If they do, it'll be crazy. They don't have the pitching to do it. So I think that they need to be all in as sellers. But what do you sell if you're the Baltimore Orioles? Because are you looking at this as, oh my God, we screwed up. The pitching's horrible this year. They still have that top organizational positional player base rookie. Holiday's starting to become the guy they thought he might be. They've got a perennial MVP in Gunnar Henderson. All the Hierstad and Mayo and blah blah blah. They've had injuries, but if you're the Orioles, what are you trying to buy, number one? Or what are you trying to sell and what are you looking to get back?
So another piece to that also is a couple of guys that are coming up at the end of this year for them anyways are Zach Eflin, Charlie Morton, Cedric Mullins, Adley Rushman, Ryan Mountcastle, Dean Kramer, Gunnar Henderson, Colton Cowser, and Jackson Holiday. Gunnar Henderson, Colton Cowser, and Jackson Holiday are all under $1 million right now. I think that's rookie
Right. They're
contract
they're
or
right. They're not free agents. They're not due up at the end of the
no,
year.
but they're that's the end
Arbitrary.
of their I again, this is why I come with proposals because this is a part of the game that I
Right.
was
Right.
never even remotely interested in. So that's why I ask, is that a part of moving some of these guys that you have to look into is
So
maybe not the younger ones, but
uh, if I'm Rushman's close to
yeah.
being a free agent, but
Adley Rushman says has 1 year left on his deal. It's a one
right.
year deal.
So you're selling a year of club control. I mean, if any of those names, so the Morton and the Eflin thing are no-brainers, right? Those are the kind of guys at the deadline. Somebody's looking to pick up that fifth starter, or that 3.5 starter. Not necessarily to get you over the hump in the postseason, but to round out your rotation, give you innings. I mean, Charlie's kind of been a disaster until recently, and he's still struggling. Eflin's, Eflin, but you're going to get marginal. I mean, it, let's just say, if I'm not mistaken, the Orioles like second or third ranked prospect is also a catcher,
Yeah, I think so too.
right?
When
And
I
they
was looking
talked
it up.
about that, and so
Uh,
Adley Rushman is, I don't know, I don't want to, I certainly don't want to put him in this category because I think Joe Mauer's a Hall of Famer, but you got to kind of think that was that was what the potential was with an Adley Rushman was this guy's going to be, our backstop for the next 10, 15 years and all the other stuff he did, he does great. So if that's a move, and there obviously be a lot of teams on the market for that would be a monster. I got to get a monster haul back. If I'm trading Adley Rushman and I have confidence that my number two prospect is catcher is a big league guy, I want two frontline starting pitchers. One big league ready, one top prospect guy. Um, and so, I don't know how many teams, and if you're a buyer, if you're a buyer, you're not out there looking to trade a top of the rotation guy,
yeah.
right? Those are the guys that hit, Adley Rushman to Kansas City for Cole Reagans and a couple super prospects, or, Adley Rushman to, let's see, well, somebody like the Cubs and the Brewers who are both going to keep their starting pitching. Maybe the Padres or Diamondbacks, Zach Gallen or so. I don't know. I'm just throwing names out there, but that, but I think you're right. Baltimore, to me, sell, sell, sell. There's no chance that they have it that they can pitch their way into the playoffs. And even if they did somehow quirk into it, they're not going to pitch their way through them. So,
Yeah, a team that's 27th in opponent's batting average, third most hits against in the entire MLB,
right,
27th in ERA, five, by the way, 5.01 ERA. Fifth most runs given up, 26th in whip, 16th in
right,
strikeouts per
right.
nine.
Their pitching has been an
Of
unmitigated
I
disaster.
also, of course, their best pitching statistic is strikeouts per nine. I also wanted to ask a question off of that with their prospect ranking being so touted the last few seasons. Do you think that that is maybe overblown a little bit because of what we've talked about with like the arms versus
Well,
pitchers?
let's be clear.
Because I don't
But,
think that they're projecting these
but,
pitchers the
but
same
but
way.
I think that, listen, I think it's Kylie McDaniel who does the stuff for ESPN, the prospect. I mean, take that for what it's worth. Kylie McDaniel's ranking prospects based on what, for the most part, what they're being told by Major League Baseball scouts, right? I mean, I'm not looking at that. When I look at their pitching and how they rank the drafts, it's not clearly a former big league pitcher who understands pitching, young pitching, developing pitching, blah blah blah. It's who throws the hardest. So those prospect rankings are, to me, subjective, like in a very dramatic sense.
But I just say that as like a simple term
Right.
because but it was true. Like that's the farm system you heard about, like the
Right.
Astros 10 years ago.
Falling though, all those guys graduated and they just fell to 15th.
But you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like
No, you're
that's
right on.
where it felt like 10 years ago with the Astros and they had the cover of Sports Illustrated and this is that it felt like the Orioles had their coming out party a
Yeah.
year early and that, oh my God, here we go. It's the opening of the window, and
Right.
it's gone the complete opposite
Well,
way.
it hasn't. It's gone the complete opposite because the pitching decisions that they made absolutely blew up on them. Trading Corbin Burns, which maybe he doesn't get Tommy John if he stays in Baltimore. But what does that mean? No matter what happens when they let Corbin Burns go, they got to find another one. And they've had injuries, and the guys that they signed didn't do the things they were supposed to do. But if you're the Orioles, I'm selling. Like I said, I'm selling for compensation picks, or I'm looking, and the way they're drafting, draft picks are incredibly valuable to them. So letting guys walk as free agents gives them a compensation pick that they've been able to maximize value. And the same thing the Rays do all the time. But I think that they expected to be 40 and 27 with a plus 85 run differential as opposed to 27 and 40 with a minus 85 now.
Yeah.
So it becomes a patience thing. Is the ownership okay? Hey, you made some decisions. We were in with you. We agreed with you. It just hasn't worked out. Or, oh my God, every decision you made is wrong. And whatever, go whatever, they're going to go that route. Problem is the division they're in, there's just they don't have the ability to have a marginal season in that division. Nobody does.
That was another question I had based on the whole like buy or sell talk. What how how much of the division you're in and especially the wild card, I guess, but overall like the National League versus American League talk would go into your factoring as a GM if you're thinking like, okay, we are right on that fringe.
Right.
Where are we a buyer or a seller? And how much of that is dependent upon the National League, American League
So
being the
to me, the
yada
tough
yada.
part is, or where I think you have to have your head at is, if you're one of the clubs, let's just look at the standings, right? If you're one of the Tampa Bay's 5.5 out, Cleveland 9 out, Minnesota 8.5 out of the division, not out of the wild card, Seattle, the Angels, the Cardinals, the Brewers, the Reds. The first thing you have to do is look at, do I have the pitching right? So let's use a hockey analogy. If you're a team that qualifies for the 8th seed and you have horrible goaltending, right? You're looking at the playoffs as it'd be nice to make a run, yada yada. But unless Stuart Skinner stands on his head, we don't have a chance. Whatever. Do you have the pitching to get, and that, what is it now? 12, 13 wins in the postseason? Because you shorten your starting rotation, so you immediately are eliminating your five. Are you deep enough? How many of those pitching staffs can you look at? I mean, look at the Tigers. The Tigers are a great example. The Tigers, if for some reason something happened and they had a play-in game, well, they have the ultimate pitcher for that, right? I mean, and then you go down that rotation, you look at Flaherty, who you have to like, Mize, who's an up-and-comer. So you've got three guys right there who, if we make it into a 5-game series, I really like our chances. And then you've got Jackson Joby as four, who, power arm. But if I'm the Tigers, I'm all in as a buyer because I'm very comfortable with my pitching going into the postseason. Because if you're going to buy, it's going to be I don't know if this was before your time, John Smoltz to the Atlanta Braves for Doyle Alexander. Alexander went like 9-0 in the second half and helped them get to the playoffs and was gone. John Smoltz became a Hall of Famer, right? Well, I mean, I got traded a couple times at the deadline. Mike Boddicker comes to Boston and pitches well. They make the playoffs. And then, Randy Johnson getting traded and going 10-1 with Houston. CC Sabathia having one of the greatest half seasons. Rick Sutcliffe winning a Cy Young after doing that, going 16-1. That's the deadline deal you're looking to make. And you can make an argument. There's a lot of, if you look back on it, Fred McGriff going to the Braves was a monster pickup because he in '93 and going into the '90s. Teams that so what do you do? The Tigers are definitely buyers. And if they're buying, they're plus 94. They're everything they're doing is good. Do they go for depth? Everybody's looking for a bullpen arm and all the things that go with that. But I said the name earlier, and the one guy I'm really wondering about because I really think, based on his last couple starts, a change of scenery, he's going to be a potential postseason difference maker. Is Alcantara from Florida? his last two starts, he's starting to be the guy that he was before. And that's totally understandable. But Miami has been a seller forever. And you'd like to think they would have done better. But who who buys Sandy Alcantara and what do they pay for him?
So that leads into my buy proposal. I had him key marked as like the player, pitcher, starting
Right.
rotation guy that I think could have a season like you're talking about, like a
Yep.
second half. And I was just looking it up before too because I've mentioned it on a previous podcast and I didn't want to not follow it up. Justin Verlander did have a little stretch like that
Yep.
when he got traded to Houston. It
Yep.
was 5 starts. He won all 5 games and allowed 4 runs
Right.
in those 4 starts.
Yeah.
So that type
Yep.
of late season acquisition, and that was 2017 before they went on to win the World Series. So
That's what you're looking to
that
do.
that type
I
of
can
pick.
totally see again, his last couple starts and leading me to believe he's kind of getting back and almost back. So two buyers that will be on in the Alcantara talks, whether we want to or not, the Yankees and the Dodgers, because money's not a problem for them.
Yeah.
And the Dodgers have a deep prospect pool. The Yankees have prospects. So you're going to have to outbid those two teams, and you're going to have to do. And if I'm Miami, I'm looking to get a young Alcantara back, and I want a legitimate middle of the order bat position player. I want some draft money, some international draft money, or whatever that might be. Um,
So the Yankees and Dodgers, like you just said, are always and obviously our buyers this year. I had the Phillies down for my proposal,
yep,
and I had a couple more. I wanted to lead off with some of the contracts they have ending this year because we're talking about a window since their World Series run in 22 that a lot of that middle lineup in Stott, Bohm, Marsh, Real
right.
Muto, Schwarber are all up at the end of the year, and that's just in the lineup in day to day 1 through 9. That's not including Jordan Romano, who is a huge, if not the biggest part of their bullpen.
Well, now that they lost their closer for 80 games.
Exactly, the biggest part of their bullpen, and then they are right now currently in second in the NL East and have a half game up in the wild card standings for the second seed in the wild card. They are middle of the pack in every major pitching statistics, number 10 through 21 on every single one, 18th in ERA, 18th in WHIP, 20 in hits per nine, 11th in walks per nine, 14th in home runs per
Right.
nine. Meanwhile, top 15 in every major hitting statistic. Uh,
Well, and so let's fast forward. Zach Wheeler starts game one for you. You got Suarez and I'm forgetting the other starter for them.
Aaron Nola.
No, Nola's out. Nola's a coin flip.
But that's why I would say Sandy Alcantara is a comparable pickup if you're not counting on having because you're saying you need a 3.5 man rotation come
Sanchez
playoffs,
is who I
right?
was thinking of.
Oh,
You've got
okay, yeah.
you've got a Wheeler, Sanchez, Suarez. You've got Luzardo. But Luzardo's probably the guy. Now, I'm of the mind that you try and go to a three-man staff in a best of five and double up your number one guy and bring Wheeler back 1 and 5.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Which I think most teams do.
well, yeah, but they're hesitant to do it nowadays. But if you don't,
I think you do if you have a Wheeler, most teams do.
Wheeler, Suarez, uh, Luzardo, Alcantara is your four, and and the Alcantara that before because
Yeah.
again, I think he's
The
going to be
22
the
Cy
guy.
Young winner, not the 7.5 ERA guy right now.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And which means which immediately see this is where the beauty of being potentially Miami is. The Mets aren't going to let that happen unopposed,
Yeah.
right? Because the Mets offensively are they're getting after it.
It's also in your
I'm
division.
still totally bought into the Pete Alonso thing because I think it's even as good as we even thought it. But they're running out pretty much five guys, and the guy who I got to tell you, the guy that I'm as impressed with anybody is Griffin Canning. He's come along. I like um, what he's done, but right now is if in a 5 game series, is it a no-brainer that you start Senga game one, dropping a 1-4? I mean, my God. But where if you're looking at that rotation and you're playing the Phillies, right? Senga Wheeler. You can say coin flip. I'm going with Zach Wheeler right now just because of what he is. But who for the Mets? I think Canning's my number two. Peterson, you know, yeah. I mean I could see giving it to Peterson, but again, both of those teams look a lot sexier with Sandy Alcantara starting game 3 or 4 as opposed to whoever a healthy Cy Young candidate Alcantara. Um, and where it really so, and I don't know, you know this being around enough. There's always a sleeper. Somebody always shows up at the deadline and makes a deal that no one saw them in the deal, like the Rays. No one saw them in the deal and they sneak up and grab the guy, or they grab a guy nobody thought was available.
Or a guy that nobody thought was going to be a big part of this deal, wasn't the main piece,
Right, but
like a
for example,
McDavid or a
again, so let's just say something happens and Arizona decides the Gallon thing. You know what? We're gonna move him. Like they do that under the radar, and a team like Seattle gets Zach Gallen, and was people like Seattle's buying,
or
and oh my,
Texas.
right, and
And then you're looking down the sheet in
right,
September and it's Zach Gallen and Jacob DeGrom.
right, exactly
You're like,
right.
how did that happen?
Right. And that was, I mean, Theo was always good at that. I mean, every Boston, it was tough to be because Boston was always in everything because they had the money and everybody knew. But you saw, and if you Jed Hoyer in Chicago, same way. Um, because I think that I think I could be wrong, but I feel like if there's a team out there that needs to probably be active and do something more with a postseason chance more than anybody else, it's the Cubs. Because I don't know.
Pitching, I'm
Yeah,
guessing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Because they can hit the shit out of the
Well, Pete
baseball.
Crow Armstrong, you're welcome. He's on my fantasy.
We were
He's on
talking
my
about this
fantasy team
before the
too.
show
I
too.
love. Um, okay. So let's just look at it like this: the Cubs get a best of 5 against the Phillies to open the playoffs. Tyon, Boyd, Brown, and Rhea. Who's your number one? Probably Tyon or Boyd. Are you going into that game saying, "Oh, you're going up against Aaron Wheeler. Somebody needs to throw 7 scoreless innings." I don't know that that guy's in that rotation right now. Imanaga is hurt, so maybe he comes back and we do the hockey thing, right, where they activate him for the playoffs, or he
Yeah.
gets the last month and shows up on the roster. But if I'm Chicago, and I'm going to say it again, Sabermetrics doesn't win in October. You're not going to pick. You might fluke into a win with an open. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work. Um, and so I wonder, and the team, my bet is that the team that's going to show up with a move at the deadline that no one saw coming and gets an Alcantara, I think it's going to be the Astros.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I'm feeling really good about Framber Valdez and Hunter Brown going 1-2 in a 7 game series,
Yeah.
right? Now I've got a Cy Young level Alcantara, and let's not go to sleep. Lance McCullers, he's sporting an ERA close to 5, but the stuff is there. You wonder about health and all that, but he's only what is he, 7 starts into the season, his season.
Yeah.
So I could totally see that. The problem becomes, even though Jeremy Pena, and by the way, I think I told you this before, Jeremy Pena is the son of the most talented player I ever played against at any level. Second baseman for the St. Louis Cardinals named Geronimo Pena, who was a switch hitter I played against in A-ball, who was the most ridiculously talented human being I ever played against in my life. Um, but Jeremy's become, well, he's become what I thought his dad was going to be in the big leagues. But, and he's hitting, yeah, he's got to be in the MVP conversation this year just because 333, 386 on base percentage, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I mean, come on. Um, but,
I had another quick note.
yep,
Most of this team, like I said, that's been there since the 22 World Series appearance, was a part of this. We were talking about them going directly head to head against the Mets, which was the reality last year. They
well,
lost 3-1 of them and to them in the division series. It went World Series exit, championship series exit in 23, and last year in the division series. So they're looking to not regress out of the playoffs
right.
this season. Uh, but during that 4 game series last year, they lost 6-2, 7-6, 7-2, and 4-1. They had 18 runs scored on them in the 6th inning or later. So if we're not talking about a starting pitcher, is there any relief pitcher that
It's the one thing that's available every deadline, no matter who's in and who's out. Everybody has a relief pitcher somebody else wants. I think, I don't think the Rockies trade Goodman because I think he's the best player on that roster. And he's a catcher outfielder, which is just ridiculous. But Bird, the reliever Bird, to me is probably the most valuable piece that they have, unless they were talking about parting with one of the young arms that they have, like a Dollander or a Palmquist or something. Even though if I'm a contending team, that's not what I'm looking to get because I'm not. That's not a guy I want to bring in for the
The
postseason.
guy Zach Eflin we just mentioned too. I mean, he's a starting pitcher traditionally, right?
Who's that?
Zach for the
Gallen.
Orioles. Eflin
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
could be transitioned into a bullpen work
You
for a
don't want to
team
gamble
that's.
there, right? Right. What you don't want to do is take a guy who, and he's a good
Do
starting
you,
pitcher.
a side question? How do you feel about that? Like being worked back to a bullpen role
No.
later in your career?
Well, later in my career, here's the thing. If I'm going from last place to first place and I'm a middle of the rotation guy, I'll do whatever I need to do,
Yeah, that's kind of what I
right?
mean because I don't think he's going anywhere to be like a
Right.
Alcantara like
He's
we're
not going
talking
in to
about.
pitch them into the playoffs.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right, right. So there's, and you could make it, and here's the other problem with this discussion. Somebody goes on a 7-game winning streak and they suddenly go from sellers to buyers,
yeah.
or 7-game losing streak, and
Well, it's like you were talking about being 8.5 games out. That's completely different things for both leagues. Like
right?
if you're 8.5 games out in the American League, there's 7 teams standing between you and a wild card spot.
Yes.
Whereas the Nationals are the fourth team out at eight and a half
There's,
games.
what is it? 4 wild card spots. There are 9 teams within 2.5 games of the 4 spots,
Yeah.
right? And in the
And
American
five of those
League,
are the American League.
huh?
Five of those are the American League, right?
Well, no, 9 teams in the American League are either in the wild card or 2.5 out of it.
Yeah.
9 teams,
That's what
right?
I'm saying.
And then in the National League, you've got 4 teams at 2 games or less are in the spot, and then 3.5, 4.5, 4.5, 8.5, 8.5. Which the 8.5, 8.5 to me is one thing when you're chasing one team, but it's not. I think it's not feasible when you're chasing 7,
Yeah.
right? Um, so when you look at it, you say, okay, the Orioles, the Athletics, the White Sox, the Rockies, Marlins, Pirates, Nationals, and the Braves probably wouldn't do it, but those are the teams that are definitely need to be sellers.
Yeah.
If right. But then it gets back to the shopping list, right? Where you can sell all you want, but if you've got used groceries and nobody wants
Yeah.
them, it doesn't matter. Um, so those guys, I'm looking that to me, that's where a team like Colorado or somebody with where if you have great scouting, that's where you find the AA Kurt Schilling. And I say that with trying I wasn't a top prospect, but the scouts that scouted me saw some upside big league starter potential. That's where you find the rookie ball guy. That's to me, that's where I would probably excel in a sense. Like, show me all the arms you're looking at in this deal, and I could tell you in 5-minute look at each. Okay, this guy's got probably the biggest, whatever. But that's where you steal a guy, right? You trade. Let's who were we talking about earlier? So you trade a Zach Eflin and you get okay, you get cash, you get a compensation pick, and you get some A-ball arm, which nobody pays attention to. But your scouts are saying this guy right here, he's going to be in the big leagues. Probably his upside is top of the rotation, probably a middle reliever, whatever. Those are the kind of, and that's what's been lost with sabermetrics is the ability to look at that. They see, well, his spin rate sucks and his this sucks and this is his exit velocity, blah. And then you go and see eyes on, you go, wait a minute, this dude's like legit. And that's one of the nuances that's been lost, and I think it has a huge impact at the deadline.
Well, it was murdered in that room in Moneyball where they essentially laugh at the eyeball test,
Right.
which is like there is the beautiful part of baseball is the marriage between the
Right.
sabermetric part of it and the
Eyeball
just go
stuff.
out there and
Yeah.
rip it type.
There's a middle ground. We talked about this. There's a middle ground that few teams have been able to find. And I get it, right? Because that was real. Like, oh, he's got an ugly girlfriend. It means he doesn't have any self-confidence. I mean,
Yeah,
that was like legitimate conversation around, do we draft this guy or
sports
not?
psychology.
Right. From guys who had no business doing it.
Yeah.
Right? Guys who dress like, well, they dress like scouts. But there is no more inexact science in the Major League Baseball draft. I would argue along all professional sports. The only comparable one is hockey because I think that both drafts draft young men that are so far removed from where they're trying to get to that there's an enormous amount of guesswork and intuition that you have to look at and say, okay, I see this guy as a first line center.
I don't think it's a mistake either that those are the two sports where you see not only lifers for franchises, but also it's because those two of those four major sports leagues have the biggest emphasis on development, like related to the major organization. You know, like they have these minor league affiliates that are so directly related to like the major league
Yeah.
club, whether it be hockey or baseball.
Well, the hockey thing, they draft kids and send them to other countries to play in other leagues.
Yeah,
Like, and in baseball, they draft them and they umbrella cover protect them and don't they put Teflon on because they don't
that's
want
definitely
people to
different.
touch them. It's a incredibly different dynamic.
Yeah, that part's for sure different.
Yep. So, all right.
You
So
want to check in on some of our
let's check in on some of the early season stuff we talked about. Who were our division winners?
so back when we checked in, I believe it was episode 13. The standings were pretty much as they look now. We had you in the American League had the Yankees, Tigers, and Astros winning their respective
Right.
divisions. I had the Yankees, Tigers, and Mariners. And then in the wild card, you had Seattle, Boston, Kansas City. I had Boston, Kansas City, and Texas.
Wow, my wild cards are gonna suck.
It's close right now, though. Like the American League, at least you're in that
Yeah.
top five threshold, not the 8.5. And then the National League, we both had the Mets and Dodgers. And then in the Central, you had the Reds, and I had the Cubs.
Yeah.
For the wild cards, you had Philly, San Diego, Chicago. I had Philly, San Diego, and then I said Arizona, but I said scratch that and give me Atlanta because they had just gotten Acuna back,
Yep. Yep.
and they're sitting exactly where they were when I said that. So, and then you had Philly, Detroit with Detroit winning. Uh, quick addendum: I said New York Subway Series, but I did not say I said Yankees win.
Okay.
I'm putting that
All
on the
right.
record now.
All right. So both of our picks are very strong World Series
Our
picks.
World Series picks look great.
Yeah.
Yeah, divisions are always hard, I
Yep.
think. Uh, do you
Who were
think?
our award winners?
Quick question before we go over the award winners, because I'm just reading stuff. I
Right.
don't want to get. Quick question: do you still feel okay about the Reds winning the Central?
No.
Yeah, I mean it's still.
Well, Hunter Green's hurt and they're 7 games out. The only reason I'm not afraid of it is Terry's managing them.
Yep.
Um, but they're a better than 500 team who just hasn't played better than 500. They're a team also. They could do the right thing and buy at the
I was
deadline.
gonna say, is that a buying team?
You know what? It depends, right? I mean, because if we look at the wild card, they are 3.5 out, but they're yeah. No, I they could be. They wouldn't. I think they've got enough minor league talent that they could make a deal, but I don't think that they want to give away the minor league talent because I think they feel really good about it. But you got an Ellie De La Cruz window that you need to maximize. I mean,
Yeah.
but the Hunter Green thing was huge for them. And I don't like the way that that's playing out right now. So
I do feel good about Atlanta, despite them being still very middle of the pack and blowing a lot of games late recently.
yeah, I don't see that. I don't see them coming back. They're 14 out, but
Mine is more so that the rest of these teams are
yeah.
due to cannibalize each other a little
Oh,
more than
come
the
on.
NL East.
If you would have said opening day that on July or June 13th, the Nationals and Braves would have the same record, like what?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like we're looking at
Yeah.
the Nats before. It's still very early in terms of
Or that
baseball's
The
life.
Braves would only be what, 2.5 games up on the Pirates?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, come on. But the Max Fried thing turned out to be he's having a special season in New York, and I think that and that it's something that happens. Atlanta has always felt so good and been so good at developing pitching. that they kind of look at pitching like, okay, if you're not going to sign with us, we're not going to overpay you because we'll just make another one of you.
Yeah.
And nobody's making another one of Max Fried this year, who, by the way, if he's not doing that, the Garrett Cole injury kills the Yankees.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, that's how I felt having that
Yeah.
future at the
Yep.
beginning of the
Yep.
season.
Yep.
All right. So for awards, we both had Judge and Alonso for their respective leagues. I think
All
those
right. So,
those both look great.
huh?
Those both look great to me.
Who in the American League could challenge Judge?
Cal Raleigh, maybe.
My fantasy catcher. Yeah, I mean, he's looking to hit 45 homers.
Yeah.
But
As a catcher.
but they're going to finish 500 and probably 10 games out. Judge is going to be prime time every night.
But if they make the
Right,
playoffs, that's one of
right.
those,
Yeah.
and that's
But
also
what
the
about
first guy who came to
Bobby
my
Witt?
head. Bobby Witt, also definitely. I'm just trying to go off the head
Like,
right
where's
now,
he at?
but
278, 837, 21 stolen base. Man. Okay.
yeah, no one's really jumping off the page
No,
off the top of my head.
no.
But it is such a clear in my mind, like it was when we made these picks. Judge, unless he
Um,
falls off historically.
I love the Alonso pick, but my God, if the season ends today, doesn't Otani get it?
Well, I mean, we were also talking about PCA, Pete Crow Armstrong.
Yeah,
So I think that's a much more competitive
yeah.
race
I
than,
just I'm such a big fan of I'm not I don't know Alonso personally and whatnot, but I anytime I see somebody at that point in their career doing what he's doing, I have so much respect for that.
yeah, big shift in
Yep,
the way
yep,
they play
yep.
is awesome.
But if the season ended today, does Otani dominate it, or is it Otani, Alonso, PCA in the voting like that?
I have no
What about Mookie
idea.
Betts?
I have no idea how that gets voted
Yeah,
on because I feel like a lot of it goes into the store, especially for baseball. Like this,
right.
that's why I say Cal Raleigh. Like if the Mariners sneak in
Right.
and are this like wonder wild card Cinderella team, and Cal Raleigh is a big story,
Well, he's going to
there's
have to hit another 20 homers, which if he does, he'll be
yeah,
on the front page every night,
yeah.
right? Really astute fantasy pick by yours truly. But yeah, so Alonso Judge, comfortable, but yeah, okay.
And
Cy Young's,
AL, we had Scooble, both of us. I think that still looks very good.
Max Fried.
Uh, yeah, Max Fried is definitely in contention for it though. But I think
Yeah,
Scooble's looked unbelievable
yeah.
finishing that game like we talked about with the 103 mile an hour complete game pitch.
I had Wheeler, and then didn't I have Hunter Brown? Wheeler, Hunter Brown.
You had well, no, we had Scooble, Hunter Brown's on the Astros.
Oh, you're right, right. I had Wheeler in the
You
National.
said Hunter Brown
Right,
for the
right, right,
National
right.
League, which I gave him a pass on the Nat guys. Then and he was in the National League when the Astros were in the National League
Right,
most of his
right.
career. But yeah, he also gave Zach Wheeler, so that I put that as your NL Cy Young pick. I had Yamamoto from the Dodgers as mine.
Who
Uh,
is it right now?
NL Cy Young,
Who is it right now?
not sure off the top of
Yeah,
my head.
I'm not.
Uh, I mean, it's hard. It's hard with the record,
Let's
but I
look
feel
at,
like with the
yeah.
more analytical, the way baseball's watched now,
Let's
Skeens.
take a look at
Even if it would be awesome if Skeens went like 5-17 and they gave him the Cy Young with like a one
right.
five.
So, by the way, at 4-6, he leads the National League in WAR. But uh
That's what I
okay.
mean, though. That'd be awesome.
So right now, and this probably would be some sort of the semblance of the finishing order would be Skeens, Mackenzie Gore, and Zach Wheeler. With Senga, and then a guy who nobody's talking about, Andrew Abbott from Cincinnati, Sanchez. These guys are all in WAR. I'm comfortable with in the sense that it gives you an idea of who's who. Burns is out for the year. Hunter Green's, Jake Bird has a 2.1 WAR out of the bullpen in Colorado. Yeah, that dude's getting traded like nobody's business. Yamamoto's numbers are 73 innings, 49 hits. I mean, come on.
I
But
said
yeah,
two 86 strikeouts. I said 2.22 ERA, 86
right.
strikeouts.
I
Like
gotta believe, honestly, if season ended today,
it's Skeens right
it's
now.
gotta be Skeens.
It's Skeens right now.
It's gotta be Skeens. And I think probably, well, I'm not gonna go to sleep on Mackenzie Gore at 114 punch outs in 81 innings. 3-5. God dang it. Skeens and Gore combined are 7-11 with an ERA somewhere around 2.2, 2.3, with 206 strikeouts and 170. I mean, come on, that's ridiculous. But yeah, no. And then some other names to think about. Chris Sale, who if he's going to have to do something. Heaney's been huge with the injuries there. Logan Webb's actually having a much better season and pitching away from the barrel of the bat a lot better this year. But yeah, Skeens, Gore, Wheeler finished 1, 2, 3. Sure, right now.
And
And
then
I can't believe I probably I'm a Zach Wheeler fan, which is why I picked him. But by the way, off the top of your head, do you know who's leading the National League in wins? They're tied, but do you know the names of the National League leaders in wins pitching?
um
I never would have gotten either one.
just trying to
I
think
actually didn't
of
realize he was having as good a year as he's having. San Francisco.
Verlander.
Robbie Ray,
Oh, really?
8-1 with a 2.5.
Damn.
And
He's a lefty, right?
okay, and here's why. And I, as a starting pitcher, I never bought into wins don't mean anything. But here's an indicator. Robbie Ray is 8-1 with a 2.55, right? 1.12 whip. Tied with him, Brandon Pfaadt is 8-4 with a 5.50 and a 1.42 whip. Now, and the guy's a strike thrower, which I love, but that just shows you. Well, and you're looking at Tyon is 7-3, Sonny Gray, Clay Holmes and Senga, Wheeler at 6. It, it's wow, it's just amazing to me and that gets back to part of the whole. There are fewer pitchers in the game. Fewer pitchers means more pitches, means less innings, means less decisions. And then let's go look real quick at the National American League. Okay, well, the obvious. By the way, the Yankees' top two starters are 17-5, leading the league. Fried 1.84, who's having a season for the ages. The number that jumps off the page at me when you talk about Max Fried is the 18 walks. 81 strikeouts to 18 walks. Rodon, who's having a much better year than I think a lot of people thought, having a great year. But then you have Hunter Brown, who's leading the league in the ERA at 1.82. DeGrom, so good to see him back. Um, and then, I mean, Skubal, give me a break, dude. 111 punch outs, 9 walks for Tariq Skubal. That's my kind of pitcher right there.
Yeah, it's nuts.
And in news flash, an amazing turn of events. The Orioles are winning 2-0 in the eighth inning. And this is what happens if you're an Oriole fan. This is what you're praying for. Charlie Morton went 5 scoreless tonight, punched out 10. Just
Yep.
jumped that trade value up, big fella. Brought his ERA all the way down to 6.05. And I say that I'm messing around, but that's not a small thing. That the Orioles fans, that's what you need to hope for, those outings over the next couple months, next month or so. Um,
And then NL Rookie of the Year, I had Roki Sasaki, who hasn't pitched since then,
yeah.
basically.
And when he does pitch, it's not going to happen. That's going to be one of the biggest busts of the winter last
And
year.
then you had Andrew Painter.
Right. I, God, who's my American League?
We both had Christian Campbell.
Okay.
So,
I went against my better judgment because I would have taken Roman Anthony, who is now in the big leagues, and I think he's one of those guys. Right. That's probably a good conversation. You remember how we were talking about? I was talking about Dollander and Palmquist and the Rockies call them guys that aren't ready. Blah, blah. The Roman Anthony thing is where you want that call up to happen. You're a middle of the pack team. You've got a rabid fan base. You're not in first place by 8 games, and you're replacing a major piece of the puzzle to help them get to the playoff. It's an environment that Roman Anthony will be able to kind of feel his way through, and he's playing in Boston, so it's not going to change the expectations, but the hype, and that's what you want to do. I mean that's how you want this kid, because this kid apparently is
it's as relaxed a situation you can come into a Boston Red Sox New
in a
York
good
game.
organization.
Yeah,
Right,
that you can come into as like touted a
right,
guy
right.
without it being like, oh my God, he's like the next great,
Yep,
the Bryce Harper
yep.
cover. which he is getting a lot of that
He is,
still in
yeah.
Boston. I
And
mean,
unfortunately, no one ever lives up to that, but okay.
Boston's one of those places, but
Yeah. But that's what makes it so fun to play.
he had a great his first RBI double was cool.
Yeah,
Down
it
the
was,
line, down the monster.
yeah. And the home run that he hit before he left AAA was
Yeah, I think it's
the only
still
guy I've ever seen hit a ball that far. It was Glenn Allen Hill.
so.
Yeah. All right. Guess my teammate.
Yeah, you want to guess your teammate? All right. We got 5 clues
I'm pissed right now because I know somebody else got it.
for a former teammate. Yeah. My grandfather got it on the very vague first clue. We go 5 clues all the way to from most vague to most obvious, starting with the first clue. An 11-year MLB career. I played for 3 MLB franchises across the National and American League. And just to follow up, that could literally be anybody. So my grandfather took a stab in the dark guess, and I literally gasped when he just said it. So,
Played 3 teams across both leagues.
yep.
Rico Brogna.
Nope. I played for the Dennis Red Sox of the Cape Cod Baseball League, where I won the batting title and MVP,
Pass.
where I lived, where I met my future baby mama. Uh, Next clue. Best known for my speed and fielding. I was only a one-time All-Star. I batted a modest 268 for my career, but had 4 seasons, top 10 in triples.
All right. Repeat the clue.
Best known for my speed and fielding. I was only a one-time All-Star and batted a modest 268 for my career, but had 4 seasons, top 10 in triples.
Dave Roberts.
Nope. Although Phillies teammates during my All-Star season in 95, my best season in terms of WAR came from my first year with the Chicago Cubs in 98.
Not Mickey Morandini.
Mickey Morandini. He just randomly
What was the
guessed.
triple stat again?
Uh, 4 seasons I was top 10 in triples during my career. Pretty impressive, right? I didn't know that
Yeah,
either.
I didn't either.
And then obviously, I bet you can guess the last clue, the most obvious clue.
His wife was really hot.
Well,
Oh,
that's not what I would have said,
okay.
but the most notable play of my career was an unassisted triple play against the Pirates on September 20th, 1992.
Okay.
First and
If I'm not
68, first and
mistaken, I
27.
could be wrong. I'm pretty sure I'm right. He did that twice
That's what I thought too, but I couldn't
with me
find
on
it
the
anywhere.
mound both times. So the first
Yeah,
time,
the one that I saw was against the
Jeff,
Pirates with
how about
Barry.
this? Listen to this.
Jeff King, yeah, Barry
Jeff
Bonds.
King hit the ball with Barry
I'll
Bonds.
put this in the
Right.
description, by the
Jeff
way,
King hit the ball with Barry Bonds. Mickey caught it.
on first.
The second time, it was Jeff Kent hitting the ball to Mickey with Barry Bonds on
Yeah,
first.
I remember this
Yeah.
that way, but if you look it up, you can only
Yeah.
find reference to the Jeff King with Barry Bonds getting tagged out. Yeah,
Jeff King, Bonds the runner both times.
yeah, it's weird.
It's
I remember
ridiculous.
that vividly too. I just couldn't find it, but
Yep.
yeah, Mickey Morandini.
Yep. Mickey
By the way,
Mo.
by the way, running through who we've gotten so far, who we've gone through as from
Yeah,
former
my
teammates.
former teammates.
Craig Counsell, Mike Lieberthal, Greg Jeffries, Tony Womack, Mike Lowell, Jason Baratek, Danny Batista, John Olerud, Mark Bellhorn, Bobby Abreu, Jacoby Ellsbury, Luis Gonzalez, and Mickey Morandini.
Good ones. I
Yep.
think I played long enough. We'll be able to drag that out for a long
I was
time.
gonna say and that's a pretty good list so
Yeah.
far. Like, no names. We
Yeah.
haven't had to go into the bullpen yet. So,
All right.
thanks for listening,
Thank
guys.
you guys. Click subscribe, spread the word.
We'll be back on Sunday.
Back on Sunday, guys. Have a great weekend. Happy Father's Day in advance to you guys too.